So the how is not conventional, that's for sure, because doing the same sort of things that we've been doing has brought us to this point. Are we satisfied? Who's honest? No, we're not satisfied. That's why we're pushing and looking and trying to figure things out. So it's obviously going to be different to what we've been doing up to this point. It's obviously going to be culturally different. It's going to take us out of our comfort zone somewhat. But how much do we want that? How much do we need? How much is it impossible for us to go without that? What we know, we can't put it into words sometimes. We know there is a need. We know there is a place I need to be, a person I need to be. There's a state of fulfillment that I know I can have, I should have. There's something holding me back from there. There's something in the way. To get there, what are we prepared to do? How much do we really need it? That's what it takes. It takes that you're at the end of your tether. You're sick of it all. You can't go on anymore unless you have this. Now when it gets to that level, then you become qualified. Now I was like that when I was young. I was a teenager. Already when I was young, I had some sense of this is misgivings, and that deepened as I grew older through various experiences that I had, and I came to a point of quiet desperation, where I couldn't forget about these needs. I couldn't happily spend time in the company of fair weather sailors and people who were friends for good times and who weren't really realistic and honest about actually, when the parties are all over, in between times and in between social engagements and in between drinks, in those quiet moments, how do you feel then? Do you feel happy then? Do you feel content then? Most people are not honest about that. They just fill things up. They fill their schedule up because they don't want those gaps. They don't want to get to that feeling because there's nothing there. There's nothing there at the bottom. And they don't like that feeling, so they fill it. But eventually, stuff like you get sick or something happens to stop you. And that's when you're forced to reflect. And so people get depressed. They get depressed because they need an answer. They can't see what the answer is. And then people persist with the same sort of activities because the Sanskrit word is anandamayo bhyasat. We seek pleasure by nature. We seek happiness, fulfillment. We avoid difficulties and suffering just by nature. So if we can't get it really deeply in reality, we're going to just keep doing the things which are at least holding up some promise of that fulfillment. That if I can't get the deep, lasting, sustained state of existence that I'm looking for, then I'm definitely going to go and try and seek it in other ways. Even though I know that I've done that again and again and again and again and it hasn't worked, I can't do nothing. I can't stop. And at the same time, the mood when one takes up that process of self-realization, reawakening that original consciousness by this process of what I call Nama Sankirtan, the recitation of the names of the Supreme Person, is a very, very powerful process. To experience it, to taste it, to try it, is to know that power. To have, first of all, the need and the desire, that although this is odd and although I've never been part of a culture which does this kind of thing, it always seems so odd to me. Who chants? The way you grew up, the way I grew up. Who chant? Do you chant? What is a chant? Chant at a football, maybe at football, they kind of go into chanting. Let's go, Manly, let's go. And stuff like that. But even they don't call that chanting, you call it barracking. But who chant? Chant. I couldn't even figure out how to say it. It's an odd thing. You just sit there and say the same thing again and again and again and again and again. Of course, your mind's going, trying to think of other things. But there's a whole practice and art and science to it. There is, for a person's intellect, there is volumes and volumes to understand about why this is important to do. how this is powerful, how it will benefit you. But simply by the recitation of these transcendental names, there is a powerful renovation of our original consciousness, of what it is that we're seeking. By nature we are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, called Sat Chitananda Vigraha. It means that Sat means eternal. We're immortal. We've always existed and we always will exist. We appear to be taking birth and dying simply because we're inhabiting a body made of matter, which is not natural. When you go from the Sat, then there's Chit. The other component of our original nature is that we are fully cognizant, fully aware, fully conscious. In other words, in our original condition, we're not conditioned. In our original state, we're not covered by matter. We're not limited. We perceive things very clearly, without interruption, disturbance. That's. You look at what we do. What are we doing here? We're researching. We're looking. We're trying to understand why, because we know that is who I am, and we feel we're lacking that now. So we're seeking that who we really are. We do actually know these things. We do know these things, but we're covered now by matter, ignorance. So we're trying to, free ourselves from ignorance. But, there's academic ways, intellectual ways to do that, but the process is actually not going to be, we're not going to arrive at the solution through those methods. The process needs to be a spiritual renovation. We need to understand the distinction between myself and my body and mind, and that I am an eternal spirit, and this body and mind, and I have an original spiritual form. It's not that I'm formless. I have personality, I have form, I converse, I have relationships in my original spiritual form. I don't need a material form in order to live and enact. Rather, it is an imposition on me. It conditions me in certain ways. I'm forced birth, death, old age and disease, whether I like it or not. But real happiness is not like that. Real happiness is not periods of highs punctuating a lot of lows. Or, if you want to look at it, cup half full, periods of, periods of goodness punctuated by some low times. That's not really happiness. Happiness is not a mixed substance. Happiness is our original state of awareness, and this is the third point. We're full of knowledge, we're eternal, and we are ananda, we are full of bliss by nature. Full of bliss. Now real happiness is a state of existence, it's a plane of existence. When you elevate the consciousness back to that actual plane of existence, you are always happy. It's a never-ending. Real happiness, or anything which is real, to be called something real, the real definition of reality or truth, is that it has no beginning and no end. In other words, it exists in all three phases of time: past, present, and future. If there was a time when something did not exist, or there is a time in the future where it will cease, it's not reality in the true by the true definition. It's not truth by the true definition. Real happiness is a constant state of existence. By clever and careful guidance and application of this process, the process begins with hearing, just like we're doing now. Or you're sitting and you're reciting the names, but you're hearing and chanting. It's called Shravanam Kirtanam.